I am a South African nurse who is currently living and working in California. The weirdest thing happened to me one night when I was working night shift back in SA. I had a patient whom I thought was playing with his for causing me no end of headaches, as we have all experienced. I eventually confronted him after having to open the clamp for what seemed like the 100th time that night. He got really irate with me and said he had done no such thing but blamed it on a young nurse in a white dress whom he said had fiddled repeatedly with it. I was confused as while we wear specific uniforms in South Africa, they were not white at this specific hospital. Needless to say, I was really irritated and I think we both ended the conversation feeling exasperated. I didn't think about the young nurse for several weeks until one night in a totally different room with a totally different patient. The call light rang, and when I went to answer it, the patient said he had a problem with one of my staff. Curious, asked what. He said a young nurse in a white uniform was standing quietly in the doorway of the dark bathroom staring at him and it was freaking him out. At this my hair stood on end, but I reassured him that he must have been dreaming and checked the bathroom just to be sure. There was nothing there, but I will never forget it. Another instance, there was a patient who was terminally ill with liver cancer in a private room. I was working days, but the night shift people said they hated going into the room because something would blow on the back of their necks and shadows would move where shadows shouldn't be. The man was a Christian, as was his wife, and his wife said she saw this black presence descend above him and his breathing would become labored. She asked myself and a friend to pray for her, which we gladly did, being Christians ourselves. We anointed and blessed the room and prayed with the family and asked the Lord to seal the room. From that time on, the room was filled with peace and love, and the man breathed so much more easier. People had no more problems with going in there. This gentle little man eventually passed away, but it was in a place of peace and love.
There's a floor in our hospital that's closed down. It isn't used except for clinical training on rare occasions, and only one room in the front of the hall. The floor used to be for postpartum moms and the newborn nursery. Sometimes when you go down there, you will see a hazy white female figure at the far end of the hall. It's rumored to be a mother who died during childbirth.
One time, another nurse and I were performing postmortem care on a patient that had passed. He had been dead for a couple of hours. All of a sudden, he sat straight up in the bed and groaned. Then fell back in the bed. We literally ran screaming from the room, and someone else finished care on him. We wouldn't go back in there.
I had a patient who was CMO and quite obviously very close to dying. The week before, my best buddy cat Pippin had died, and I was pretty broken up about it still. That being said, I walked into her room and she said, "Oh, you brought your kitty with you." I blink at her and say, "What?" Mind you, this was the first time I'd had that patient, and I hadn't discussed my cat with her, having cats or even liking them. Her reply, "Your kitty. It's right by your foot." I get that frisson, that momentary shiver in my soul, and ask just for kicks, "Yeah? What color's the kitty?" "Black with some white." Pippin was a black tuxedo cat with white paws and a white bib, and the patient died that night.
My mother trained as a nurse at the Old Westminster Teaching Hospital in London in the 1950s. On one of her first night shifts, she was doing rounds in the children's ward. Everything was fine. All the kids were asleep, but in one of the rooms, she found the sink faucet running, which was a bit weird because it had been fine when she'd been by a few minutes before. She figured that one of the kids had got up and been thirsty or something, turned it off, and carried on with the rounds. When her shift was over, she checked out with the matron, who asked if she had anything to report. She said there was nothing, except that someone had left a faucet on in one of the rooms. The matron looked horrified and gasped out, "Oh no." She then explained that the ward was haunted by a ghost which washed its hands, leaving the faucet running whenever a child was going to die. My mother laughed this off, pointed out that none of the kids in the ward were seriously ill, and went home. When she came in for her shift the next evening, she discovered that a previously perfectly fine child in that room had had a sudden seizure and died only a few hours after she'd found the open faucet.
I took care of a baby in the NICU one time, and family believed in reincarnation as part of their religion. A few days before their baby passed, A large fly would frequently land on the baby's crib. After the baby died, a fly would continue to come, and whichever isolette it would land on, that baby would soon code or die after that. It was scary. Now, every time someone would see a fly, we would freak and try to kill it before it landed on someone.
When I was a hospice nurse, I went to a house to do post-mortem care and sit with the patient and family until the funeral home arrived. While I was sitting on the couch in the living room, a mouse ran out from the living room and into the patient's bedroom, under the hospital bed. I, of course, was horrified and yelled for the son. The son simply replied, "It won't bother you." The mouse stayed under the bed until the funeral home got there. It then ran to the living room under the coffee table. As the funeral home men rolled out the patient, the mouse went out behind them. The son later explained that the mouse had been in the house that last few days with the patient. The dog never reacted to the mouse, everyone just sorts of coexisted. It's like the mouse was watching over the lady.
If you like stories like these, please support this channel by leaving a comment, liking, subscribing, and/or sharing. Please comment which story you found the most interesting. Thank you for your time today.